In the VIP hospitality industry, do you get a second chance at first impressions?
By and large, I'm a big believer that you do not. You have an opportunity to make things right if you respond quickly and you respond with real thought. In the film and television industry, as you know, Chris, you really don't have an opportunity after a bad first impression. From my experience, it's really difficult to recover from that. And it's a very intimate industry as well. So if someone's had a bad experience, they're going to talk.
Ken,
Chris,
thank you so much for being with us today.
it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
How important in travel and the film set is bathrooms and parking?
Well, it's really interesting you asked that because I think bathrooms ranks as number one. I think there's three elements that are most important, especially in this space for people who are on location for 4 to 6 months at a time or even longer. The bathroom, the bed, meaning the mattress, and parking obviously being critical, especially in a city like Philadelphia, where that infrastructure can be a little bit limited. So it's great that you touch on that because this is what we always hear is you've got to have a really nice bathroom, great shower, you've got to have a really comfortable mattress, and you've got to have reasonable close parking.
How much of hospitality is logistics?
Logistics, I would say, is probably 60 to 70% of hospitality. And the reason being is the experience you want, especially for your higher profile clients, depends on being able to seamlessly get them from one place to another. So whether it's coming home, getting in the apartment, getting situated quickly so they can go to bed and then wake up for whatever they need to do at a reasonable time, or, get them out of the city to their cars, get them out on location so they're able to get on the highway and be to where they need to be. So logistics is really important. And I think it's also really a major factor, whether it's conscious or unconscious for the guest, as far as their satisfaction level is concerned at the end of the day. I never really thought about it like that, though, but it definitely is very, very important now that you ask me.
How does factoring logistics link into factoring into how you care for your clients?
Well, I think a big thing about hospitality is that sort of outward demonstration of care that you constantly show the guest. And I think for the segment that we're largely accustomed to, which is the entertainment space as well, there are a lot of demands on these folks, whether they're the cast, the crew, whether they're the performers, they're the stagehands, whatever the case may be. They're away from their families for a very, very long amount of time. So when you care for them, a big part of that caring process relates to the logistics, because what you're saying to them is, we value your time and we value your freedom and your ability to get what you need to get done so that you can enjoy your time here in the city while you're on location. You can correspond with your family more regularly because you might be away from your family for several months on end. You might have kids that you can't talk to on a reasonable basis. And so managing the logistics is a very big part of that care process because you're respecting their time.
What other ways, when you're thinking in terms of hospitality, can you also think in terms of valuing someone's time?
I think it's very much about an experiential care for the people, for the guest. And what I mean about that is when you're valuing their time from an experiential standpoint, you are saying, as a hospitality leader, manager, whatever role you're playing on the hospitality end, that you care about their mental and physical well-being. And I think that's a really important part of the process because, let's face it, it's really, really stressful no matter what line of work you're in. And if you're away from home, either by choice or by necessity, it really speaks volumes to the guest when you're showing them that level of care from an experiential standpoint, whether that's, hey, I'll take care of that spa treatment that you're getting on the weekend, or, don't worry, I'll pull your car around in the morning because I know you're, talking to your family about a near and dear or important matter. And so that's how I look at things. It's very much about the experience at the end of the day. That's critical from a guest perspective.
I just was reading Unreasonable Hospitality by 𝐏𝐢𝐜𝐬, the restaurant. Have you read it? Yeah. But he says the same exact thing. Like taking his restaurant from number 50 in New York to number 1 in New York was all about having a special glass with the date of the wedding night, if like there was a couple there, or like a couple got snowed out of their honeymoon, so they're stuck in New York. So like having people drive the car around and like thinking about, it's not just the food, it's the hospitality experience that they're delivering.
100%, and it really doesn't take that much time. I mean, let's face it, you can pull up some pretty intensive information on someone on Google. So doing your research in advance, especially about your VIP guests, I think it goes a long way to ensure that, when they arrive, you're setting that tone from the get-go.
I love that. What are some other tangential industry ways that you could do research on your guests and to serve them in that sense?
Well, I think a big thing for us, because we worked with particularly with a certain demographic of client, as you know, in the film and television industry, that was really our bread and butter. So we had an opportunity to speak to their agents, their managers, their day-to-day people, and kind of get a feel for some of the things that you may not be able to find online, some of their interests that may not be so publicly available or known. And we could have a conversation with them and we could say, hey, look, what is this individual? What do they really care about? Like, what are their potentially unknown or lesser known hobbies or interests? And we'd cater to those. So when we welcomed them, they'd walk into a unit or an experience where we'd have welcoming packages that are tailored to them. And that got more intensive as we went on. And that really became a hallmark trait of who we were, especially in this particular industry where you need to set yourself apart. Yeah.
Yep. Well, that's actually was my next question, is what part of setting yourself apart to be the top 2 to 5% is thinking of things that nobody else has thought about, even the client?
I think it's a huge part, and I think there's certainly a testing element to that, because you go through a lot of trial and error in that 1 to 2%. But I'm always a believer at the end of the day, if you do 2 core things very well, if you have a product that's unique, they walk into a situation. I'm even thinking about the room here. When I walked into this room, I was hit instantly with a particular energy. And there's unique qualities about a hospitality experience. That goes for restaurants as well. There's that unique quality about the setting, the environment, the energy that creates, which I think is core. And then it's the attentiveness of the service. And it's being emotionally inclined to understanding, okay, is this particular guest, do they want a more hands-on experience? Or is this particular one, do they not really want to be bothered at all? Should I leave them kind of with a little bit of distance? You need to be able to read people very quickly. Nothing's worse for a lot of travelers or a lot of folks who are staying in places than that effusive, front desk person who's constantly asking them questions, or sometimes people just want space, and being able to read them and understand sort of, their core personality or base personality traits as a guest is really, really critical.
Wow. In the VIP hospitality industry, do you get a second chance at first impressions?
I am going to say it depends on the industry, but by and large, I'm a big believer that you do not. You have an opportunity to make things right if you respond quickly and you respond with real thought. But if you're flippant in your mistakes towards the guest or the client, you do not have a second chance. In the film and television industry, as you know, Chris, you really don't have an opportunity after a bad first impression. From my experience, it's really difficult to recover from that. And it's a very intimate industry as well. So if someone's had a bad experience, they're going to talk to someone else. So I would say they're far less forgiving in the entertainment, film, and television industry. That goes for sports as well, because they're paying a lot of money. So their expectations are, we want it right from the get-go. But I would say in general, it also really depends on your response. And believe me, we've been through these situations before. So we've learned from this.
Yeah, I used to shoot high-end weddings for a few years, and I remember, when I first start out, and I might accidentally have deleted a card or deleted a clip or something. I kind of edit it around it, hoping that the client would know. So they'd be like, "Hey, what about that clip?" And or versus the other end, where I accidentally formatted a whole card or something. The horror story happened when I was a teenager or something, and then I immediately called the client that day. And I was like, "I am so sorry. Something happened. I don't know what happened." They're like, "Oh, Chris, thank you for letting us know." But if you just own up to it right away, and you just people, I mean, sometimes they might respond poorly to that also, but quickly responding to a mistake and owning up to it, I think, is just almost always makes.
Totally. And coming to them with a solution, with a concrete solution. Here's what we're going to do for you, and we're going to get it done ASAP. That goes really a long way.
Tell me a bit about the balance between your thinking of really creative ways to bless someone or treat them with a special thing, but also playing a little bit more of a fly on the wall. It's I'm kind of your silent sniper in the background. I'm doing your logistics, but you're never going to know I'm here. Everything went really smoothly, but you're not really going to know why.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's, to your earlier point, it's about setting the tone early, really being very hands-on and very tailored and customized and curated in that initial approach when it comes to sort of the welcoming phase of the guest. Then saying, look, one of the things that I was really big on, and this is probably for another conversation, but I'm not a big believer in this idea of work-life balance, especially if you're an entrepreneur, business owner. That just does not exist. So one of the things I did to set the tone early was say, look, we're here for you. You have my personal cell phone number. Text me whenever you need me. And they knew if they needed to get a hold of me, they just text me. Otherwise, I just left them to sort of their own sense of peace. I let them do what they needed to do, and I let them have the experience that they wanted to have or dictate, and then I would be there as a buffer. So I think it's about showing up front the care for the guest, really setting the tone for being hospitable or for hospitality, but then stepping away and saying to the guest, look, you have everything you need. Reach out to me if there's anything else I can do.
Ooh, I love that. I think I was recently reading or watching a tutorial or a lecture by an author I really like on how important it is to early on in the novel you're writing or the movie that you're presenting, tell the audience what they're in for and then deliver that. And I think the same could almost apply to a hospitality or an experience type thing where early on you establish, hey, this is kind of the experience you can expect, and then you kind of deliver on that.
It makes me think of something that this is the first time I've ever made this connection in my mind based on what you said, but if you ever heard of the famous producer Max Martin, he's been behind something like 50, 60 number one hits. He's a Swedish guy, did everything from way back in the day, Britney Spears. His latest massive hit was The Weeknd, Blinding Lights, but he's been doing it for decades now. And he always said, I always start my songs with the instant recognizable tune, where immediately when the listener hears that, they know, okay, this is the song. And it's kind of exactly what you're saying, setting the tone, really establishing up front the expectations, but then letting the guests sort of, not figure it out themselves, but experience it in a very intimate, sort of self-driven way.
How much does confidence play into a positive first impression in the hospitality field?
I think it's really, really big, because you're speaking for your product at the end of the day as well, because people, you're a reflection of your product, and people want to have confidence in that product. But I think there's a fine line between being confident and being a little bit too over the top, maybe even bordering a little bit. The Germans always said 𝐏𝐢𝐜𝐬𝐳, which means like high-nosed, and I think that fits perfectly for the hospitality industry. You see that a lot in some brands that I will not name. But I think that sets an expectation that any guest does not feel like they can make a connection with that brand. So I think it's being confident, but not being not getting into that arrogant or cocky phase or state that you sometimes see that reflects some of these brands out there.
Does the concept, as a person in the hospitality industry, of not reflecting or mirroring your client's emotions mean anything to you?
I think you need to consider yourself, if you're a hospitality provider, you need to see yourself as the counterbalancer. So if you're mirroring an upset or agitated client, guest, or customer, it's going to create a massive domino or snowballing effect. And you're probably not going to have that person back as a repeat. So I think you see yourself as a counterbalancer. If you sense the guest or client has had a bad day, you kind of want to be that counterbalancer to try to bring that soothing, relaxing energy to them, to, in a sort of unspoken or indirect manner, help to contribute to a state of calmness as they go back into their unit or back into their room. So I think being a counterbalance is a very, very important part of working in hospitality. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You need to be able to read emotions, because a lot of people aren't necessarily direct in communicating their emotional state, but you need to be able to read body language, pay attention to paraverbal cues, intonation, to understand, okay, what is this person's mood right now? And is there anything I can do to improve it? Or do I just kind of step back and give them some breathing room?
Tell me more about paraverbal communication.
Well, it's interesting. One of the most interesting research points about communication is that only 7% of communication is verbal. So I think it's like 58% is nonverbal, and then 35% is paraverbal, which means your intonation, your voice inflection. And so I think you can deliver the same message word structurally and have that mean an array of different things based on the intonation as well. And especially in hospitality, being very careful about how you employ your intonation is really critical at the end of the day.
That's what my favorite word on film set is copy. I say copy you because I like to make people feel really heard. But, it's a pressure cooker. You were just so irritated at somebody, or they're irritated at you. And you say like, okay, like K. You could interpret fine. You could interpret an affirmation of I heard what you said in so many different ways that could be taken so many different ways. But it's just copy. Like you could be frustrated with somebody, say copy. And it's like a great lubricant to just kind of get things moving on.
Totally. Yeah, it's now like the new thing that people are doing when they're annoyed by a text message, they hard it. Which I've been doing myself lately, but
it's like you take out your energy, but it's not passive aggressive, because I feel like that's probably what escalates things more than actual aggression is passive aggression.
Oh, 100%. And I think that comes into the intonation or paraverbal element as well. And there's also a touch of nonverbal communication and passive aggressiveness, body language. So, yeah, that's a really good point.
Is the customer always right?
No, Certainly not. But I think I think it's your job, especially in hospitality, to make the customer think that they're always right, A, and to take reasonable steps to address the customer's frustrations or requests at the end of the day. And that's also through a lot of trial and error as well. I mean, there were times earlier on when to us the customer was always right because we needed the business. And so we'd have some undesirable repeat customers or guests. And then we realized it's not worth the juice, you know. It's not worth the juice at the end of the day, even if we don't rent out the room or, you know, we don't book that particular unit for X amount of weeks or even months. It's better not to have this type of client in.
Mm-hmm. My second core value is serve those who will let you. It used to be serve, but then I realized that there's some people that aren't going to let you serve them. So serve those who will let you.
Absolutely. And that comes back again to what we were saying earlier. You have to recognize the people who just want distance. They paid for the product, they paid for the service, but they want to be left to their own devices.
How does integrity play a role in the hospitality service industry?
I think it's huge because I think there's a lot of times where you'll see hospitality providers try to cut corners, be dishonest about mistakes that they made. And most guests have been through this exercise in the past, especially if they're frequent travelers. So they've heard every excuse. So why lie to them at that point? So integrity is really, really important. And I think being upfront when you've made mistakes or upfront when things aren't up to the expectations of the guest or client are really important. And honesty usually is in this case the best policy.
I think you and I could both agree that the most important aspect of a film set, especially, and I think the hospitality industry too, from what I understand, is your foot soldiers. You know, the people that are actually picking someone up from the airport, the person that's running somebody a late night sushi after a long day on set or something. What happens when you have a VIP client who is really out of line, treating one of your staff like that you're a leader of, kind of like garbage? Do you side with your talent, with your staff? Do you side with your team? Do you the client is always right? Do you try to muscle through that? Tell me a little bit about your reaction to that question.
Yeah. Firstly, this is a great question because we have been through these situations. I will say that my general rule of thumb is that the higher level talent you get, the easier they are actually to work with. So your A-listers tend to be your easiest to work with. And there's a reason behind that because they've gotten to that point because they recognize the importance of the crew. They recognize the importance of the support around them. They appreciate that. They have gratitude towards that. And that helps escalate them as well. So your typical difficult personality sets come in that sort of, you know, C range, I'll call it, or even some of your crew members as well. And I think there's an array of reasons for that. I think insecurity is a big one. So what we try to do firstly is really understand what happened. And there are times where, you know, our staff is messed up, and then we'll work with the guest or client to say like, look, let's make this right. We'll figure it out. Or we'll respond in a certain way where we know it's going to, you know, trigger a good response from the guest. I'm a big believer. I will never throw my team under the bus. I'll always, you know, really take the time to understand what happened. And if it is something that they didn't do wrong and the client or guest is just being totally unreasonable, then of course I'm going to have the back of my team always. And usually it will take the form of me addressing that with their day-to-day manager, with their agent, and just saying, look, you know, I've got to be honest with you. This is not on us in this case. Like, we're willing to make this right, and we want to make sure that, you know, person XYZ has a great experience. But I just want to establish that right now, that this is not on my team.
Expanding on leadership, how do you, as a coach of your team, when you're training them on the onboarding or just kind of growing with your foot soldiers together, how do you pursue that that really intense, high level, high caliber VIP experience for your VIP clients, while also being, gentle and, kind and not being too hard on the team and stuff in this industry?
I think it's all about walking that path with them. You need to be willing to get into the proverbial trenches with them. They need to see you doing the things that you expect from them. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we were talking before we started, times I'd have to clean toilets because our cleaning staff didn't do the job up to standards, or install bidets for guests who had special wishes, or drop off towels at 3 a.m, or work with maintenance because the air conditioning wasn't working properly at 6 a.m. So I think it's really about leading through demonstrating that you're willing to do whatever it takes. You don't turn your nose up at any role, and then having them be a part of that. Having them shadow you at first, working alongside of them as another colleague would. It's really, really critical to not just fostering a great guest experience, but really bringing your team up, several notches.
How many really negative team members does it take to completely ruin the guest experience?
I think it's just one. I think it's just one at the end of the day. Just heard a great adage last night, overheard it while I was having dinner with some friends who were visiting from Lebanon. And I heard one of my friends say that the biggest and most critical piece of advice she ever received is hire slow, fire fast. So you need to be able to recognize, because some people just aren't, you're always going to make hiring mistakes. And especially in the hospitality industry, going back to that point, you do not generally get a second chance to make a first impression. So it's really important to recognize that. And it really only takes one person at the end of the day.
What is the worst thing that someone on a staff such as yours could do with a super famous movie actor or one of your VIP clients?
Yeah, I think really on the lower end, one of the things we were really, really hammered into them is you must be respectful of this person's privacy. You cannot fanboy, you cannot fangirl. Don't ask for selfies, don't ask for autographs. That's just a baseline absolute no. I mean, obviously, I can think of many worse things that they could do, but that's one that I think is quite easy for, especially, a greener employee. That's a mistake that they can quite easily make. So we always told them, just, treat them as if you would any other important guest that's not all over television, film, and print, on social media. So that was, I would say, is the most common, slip up that can occur.
I love that. I feel like we talked a lot about kind of emotions today and kind of emotional readings and stuff. I feel like I heard two interesting things. One person says is that confidence breeds trust, not the turning of the nose or the overconfidence, but being confident in yourself actually breeds trust with the person that you're with, because they can feel confident with you. And people do business with those that they know and they like and they trust.
Exactly what you said speaks to really important value for me, which is authenticity. And authenticity, I think, is one of the single most important things that you can display in human interaction, especially today. It's very easy to be distrustful of people in general, thinking, what do they want from me? What are they trying to sell me? What are they trying to gain the upper hand on? I think it can be any array of that. And I think authenticity also takes courage as well, because it's saying, I'm not worried about how someone else sees me. I know this is who I am, and I want to make sure that I project that in a sense that's respectful, but I want to project that in a sense where people can really observe and interact with the true person that I am. the true personality that I am. And so I think that's really, really critical for me.
Does fake it till you make it work?
I think it only works for a period of time to be able to fool the person that has either employed you or is relying on you to fake it. But I think you're going to get also to a point where you can't fool yourself anymore. And I think what is that? The Peter Principle, I believe it's called, something to the extent that, people rise to a particular level where they hit a ceiling unless they take on new skills or further their education or practice at that next level. It's something to that extent. But I think you get to a point where you start saying, if you fake it too long, you get into this imposter syndrome mode, which everyone goes through, I think, at some point in time. Like, am I supposed to be doing this, or am I skilled enough to be doing this? So I think the fake it part is great to get your foot in the door, but you have to do the work to get to the make it part at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think biggest thing I've learned lately is people really like it when they feel at peace around you, when they feel a peaceful presence, peaceful energy. And you can try to force or control a peaceful presence that you're in, or you can look inward to yourself and say, okay, what are the steps that I could take to feel peace in my own heart, so that when I'm hanging out with Ken, I feel a peace in my own heart, and then that environment just naturally projects outward. And then I don't feel like I'm imposturing at all. I just feel like I'm enjoying this experience, this moment. Right. So for me, I don't know what fake it till you make it has never connected with me. Maybe I'm just not understanding what people mean when they say that. But
yeah, and maybe to your point, if you are faking it, it's in essence, you're projecting a lie that you know instantly. So maybe you're just not at peace at the end of the day. And to your point, that might also play into the authenticity part, because the person who is going through that exercise you're interacting with, you recognize isn't at peace. So maybe you're not able to make that connection with them.
I love that. I think people, especially VIP people, are really good at detecting the tiny parts of the lie, the tiny deceits, the little bit of the inauthenticities of people. So if you really do remain truly authentic to yourself, to the best of your ability, yeah, where can you go wrong?
Yeah, 100%.
Can you tell me a little bit? We talked a little bit about being quick at reading people's emotions. Can you give me a story where you really had to employ empathy with a VIP guest of yours?
Yes. I can think of one right off the bat. So obviously I won't name this person, but there was a mishap. Firstly, let me say we allow pets. We allowed pets in our units because folks would, be on location for a long time, and we wanted them to be with their dogs or their cats. It just made it easier. We had a situation with one of our clients where there was a mishap with their pet that they were responsible for. And unfortunately, it resulted in the death of the pet. And I was away. I'll never forget it. I was in Pittsburgh, and I was an array of very, very important meetings that day for the film and television industry, actually. And I ended up, spending the entire day talking to their team to coordinate, what to do, how to make things easier for this person. And then I actually ended up coming back, taking the body of the pet to a location in North Philadelphia to have it properly, cremated and disposed of, or whatever they do. And then, we went through this whole thing to put this whole package together, take care of this person. It was a really traumatizing time for them. And they were, at least tangentially, I don't want to say responsible, but they were tangentially associated at the same time that this animal passed. And so they were obviously understandably shaken by that. So I think that's what comes to mind the most. But there's also an array of other things. Again, I think it just comes down to, you have bad days on set, you have bad days, on stage, you have bad days at the workplace or the office. And so, again, sometimes it's just something as small as like recognizing that and providing a small gesture, whether it's a word, whether it's picking up like a pack of tea, they like dropping it off at their door, or a bag of coffee or something, or it's usually the little things that make the biggest impact. But we were always in that mode.
Sounds like something a pastor of a church would do. It's like somebody's had a loss. And it's like, okay, I'm driving straight through the night from Pittsburgh to Philly, which I've done that drive. So I know that's, and like, I'm going to come out, I'm going to be with you while we grieve this loss. And we're working all at the same time too. So
totally. And you think about it, like these people are usually on their own. Again, they're away from their families. They're in a location by themselves. It's not all unlike, I worked for years as a bartender, and I had a very experienced bartender tell me, the reason you need to be so conversationally good with guests as a bartender is usually the people sitting at the bar are by themselves. And they might be going through a really difficult time. They may have gone through a breakup. There may have been a family issue and they just need to get away and have a drink. Maybe they had a relative who passed, or something serious happened in their life, or they're just feeling lonely. And so it's kind of the same as a hotelier or someone running like, a hospitality brand. Is just need to be ready to understand that you're likely going to have to respond to the emotional needs of the guests as well.
what's the best thing to do when you're having a really awful day yourself and everything's falling apart? Maybe you're having some personal adversity in your own life and you wake up completely on the wrong side of the bed, and there's this huge VIP person that you have to take care of for about 2 or 3 weeks for a huge project. How do you take steps to recenter your own peace when you're just really on edge, about to lose it, and you keep yourself balanced with the person that you're serving?
Oh boy, how many times we've been there before. That's several years of my life, which I could say in some sense I'm still recovering from proverbial PTSD. But I think the big thing is, firstly, take a long walk, grab a cup of coffee, do one thing good for yourself. But I actually found that in those moments, I was able to cheer myself up or bring myself out of the dumps or out of the pits by actually doing something really, really great for one of our clients. You know, doing something that brought a smile to their face would usually, interestingly enough, lift my own spirits. So I think sometimes putting yourself in a position, and we're both, service is both very important to us. And I always say one of the best ways to get yourself out of the pit or out of the dumps is to go out and help someone else. Bring a smile to someone else, do something great for them. And I think at the end of the day, that really does also affect us in a positive way. So the first thing is get up, take a nice walk. If you need to take a bath or a shower, if you need to go for a swim, go to the gym, do something for yourself, but then take it upon yourself to lift someone else's spirits. And that will work its way back to you.
It's beautiful. It's like you go out into the world and you serve to restore the peace in your own heart so that you can go back into the world as a better place.
Exactly. Yeah.
Baby, do you have any questions?
It kind of related to the last one, but throughout your career, have you ever reached a low point, and how did you pull yourself out and keep doing what you do today?
Oh my gosh, I've reached many low points. I always say that being an entrepreneur is psychological warfare. You give up a tremendous amount of what you see everyday normal people enjoying, everything like being able to go out to dinner, even being in relationships. You sacrifice a lot. And I really think that it's just about being able to chunk down your life experiences into one step at a time. And the smallest things, the smallest sort of solace that you can take, or the smallest achievements or successes that you can take out of, what you're doing, whatever it is you're pursuing, helps give you enough motivation to move forward. But I always tell young entrepreneurs at the end of the day, it is a win every time you wake up in the morning and your business is still operational, because that succession, that series of steps that you take, as long as you can take enough, you will get to the finish line. You will be successful. You will make what you're pursuing work, and probably at a very high level. But it really is about saying, like, each day I'm just going to make one small step, and I know there's going to be setbacks, and you just have to tell yourself that. And you're going to have a lot of really tough days, but that's personally how I get through. And I think also I have a very strong faith in God and in Jesus as well. So it helps me, that has gotten me to places and through situations that I could have never gotten through myself.
How has your faith impacted your role in kind of a fairly secular industry that is the film industry?
Yeah, that is a really great question. I think at the end of the day, like, everyone that I've noticed, especially in this industry, has a really different way of expressing faith in some way, shape, or form. So you recognize it, so you can extrapolate things, and you can share experiences, and you can share beliefs. You can sort of have that, like, mutual, sharing of faith at the end of the day. But we've been blessed enough to work with some really, really interesting and high-level clients who have shared, our concept of faith in God. And I think of one who will always leave an indelible impact on me, and that's 𝐏𝐲𝐽𝐜. He's one of the finest souls ever. And for him, faith was a really, really important thing in a very secular industry, and he was not shy or quiet about that. And I learned a lot through him and sort of how to navigate this secular industry, as you say. And I think it's a great way to put it. And still be able to share these experiences with clients who, have their own definitions, but we're all respectful of those, and we can all find commonalities and extrapolate, those commonalities to share with one another.
It's so beautiful, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's cool. I didn't know that about you, so it's awesome. Yeah. Ken, what's next for you and your business?
Well, we have a really exciting opportunity with a big client who's doing some very, very high-profile work in the film and television, music, entertainment, touring space. And so we are at a really fun and dynamic and nerve-wracking and thrilling inflection point in the business, where we are where our platform is going to be used on a much more widespread basis. And this platform will take us out of the crosshairs of all the day-to-day stuff that we've spent, today talking about. Whereas instead of us doing the work, now the agent or advisor will use our technology or platform to execute a lot of the work that we were talking about for the same demographic that we've garnered so much experience around. So that's an exciting piece for us. We still have a long way to go, but we're, after 7 years, we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel.
Do you ever fear, as you kind of are able to distribute and scale up your software and kind of the workload to serve more people, that some of the service quality might be a little bit diluted? Like, if people in Chicago are using your service, you can't personally drive out and help, with that pet that needs to be, buried. Like, do you ever fear, as you kind of scale up, the detail of that hospitality experience we've been talking about might at all be diluted?
No, this is a great question. And this is what we pursued, a way to sort of digitally bring the benefits of what we've done for so many years to the user who's now on a business to business level, which tends to be the advisor or the agent, which then empowers the people who are in the position we were in to do their jobs better. So we're kind of bringing sort of a continuity or sort of a, what do you call it? Like I'm thinking of the term that McDonald's always uses, like a consistency in quality, no matter where we're required or where our support is required worldwide. Yeah, a quality control, I guess you could say.
That's incredible. Ken, where can we find you and your business?
Well, you can find us at coraltravel.io, and you can find me. We've a LinkedIn, and you can find me on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever if you ever want to talk. I'm always happy to chat. I love working with aspiring entrepreneurs and kind of passing along the experiences and the sage wisdom I've collected from those experiences to them to help them out. I feel that's a really important part of what I am becoming, is someone who can sort of support others who've been through the same situations I have.
The mentorship chapter.
Yes, the mentorship chapter. Yep.
Ken, thank you so much for coming. You're a gem.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate it. This has been an honor.